our podcast, we are going to be looking at reboots and remakes.
Yay.
So it's when you run out of ideas, what do? You reboot and you remake. You know, when you suggested this last week, I actually thought you were trolling me because I picked a really hard one last week for Indefensive, and I was like, this is a challenge. This is for making you watch that movie last week.
Oh no, I found it hard as well. Actually, I must admit.
I tell you, if it's something that's challenging, it's worth doing. So, you know what? I've got a question. Why has it been so hard to actually do a remake or to actually reboot a franchise? But looking at remakes to start with.
Do you mean like why is it? What? Say that again. Sorry, I was miles away there.
When why is it hard to actually remake an existing property when it's been a success at the start, and when you go back to it to actually do it for a different audience?
I don't know. I think it's exactly that. Like you've had a certain generation used to the original, and then you've got to try and please that one and the new one. You know, it's like the prequels, isn't it? Star Wars was obviously going to come up here. You have the original people who were there at the start, and then people who were there for the prequels, and also the young people that weren't there originally but have seen the original. You know, there's so many different generations you have to please when you remake something. I think that's the challenge of doing a good remake anyway.
But with Star Wars, I mean, Star Wars is the same story told three different ways.
Yeah.
So you've always got the mythology there, so it will transfer. And there was one complaint with Phantom Menace. I think it might have been George Lucas that said that these were films that were made for kids. And just because they've grown up, the films are still made for kids. So you've got Anakin being the hero of Phantom Menace, just as Luke was in A New Hope. And the original generation, a lot of them couldn't relate to the kid. They couldn't go back to, think of what it was like to be a child and having a character you can relate to. Because Star Wars, they grew up with Star Wars between 77 and 83, or a bit further if you include the animated series and the Ewok movies. So that's just, one of the early stages of the internet, people voicing their opinions.
Yeah, I mean, there's that famous quote, isn't there, from George Lucas, where he's, on The Making, where he's saying, it's poetry, it rhymes.
Yeah, it's true.
But then, he actually says, hopefully, afterwards, as if, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing here. Yeah.
If you look back, I mean, okay, with Star Wars, with Phantom Menace, it was very political.
Yeah.
But at the climate it was released in 1999, and you look at the climate we have now, especially what just came out of with Donald Trump, you can see that did George Lucas know something we didn't know? Because I find Phantom Menace now alongside THX, American Graffiti, A New Hope, and now Phantom Menace as 4 George Lucas masterpieces.
Yeah, well, we said on our commentary for Phantom Menace, total non-shame for plugging there, about if he's not a prophet, then he's good at noticing patterns in society.
Definitely.
Which is why he was so good at adapting, mythology to use for the original. But I don't know, I think, when that first came out, you weren't, it was, Star Wars was back after nearly 20 years, wasn't it? It wasn't, I'm looking forward to a political thriller. I mean, when the opening crawl comes up and it says about trade unions and disputes and that, and you think, okay, I'll give it a shot, or whatever this is. But like I say though, that's sort of grown on me years later, and I think that's the same with a lot of remakes I didn't like at the time. There's some that you will rewatch again and think, oh, that's actually quite good now.
Yeah.
I don't know if do you feel the same?
I mean, I went through a period with going back to Phantom Menace with the rose-tinted glasses period. Then,
same.
And we all know how I feel about Attack of the Clones, so we're not going to go into that one here. That is our divisive one. But now I consider Phantom Menace, especially through conversation, I consider Phantom Menace, like I said, to be George Lucas's 4th masterpiece.
Yeah, definitely.
And especially when you look at, if you look at the prequel trilogy as a whole and how it's shaped everything that's been It's come since, and especially with the Mandalorian and all Disney's animated. Star Wars animated. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit distracted in the background because I can see someone coming through I have my fiance in the background, so if anyone's wondering what the rogue hand is that's watching us on YouTube.
It's not a ghost.
No, it's not a ghost. So if you want to see what we're doing on YouTube and you're watching, or if you are on YouTube, yeah, that's what the thing in the background is when I go like that. It's my fiance. So and if you're on listening to us on all the other platforms and you're wondering what we're talking about, so sorry, that's just a little bit of a distraction there. And we're doing this in one take, so yes. The prequels have actually bled into modern day culture. So they actually work. I mean, thing is that I take one of the ones that I define as being one that's been quite at the forefront of the reboots was Robocop, because I was looking forward to it, and I thought that Robocop was a franchise in itself where they got the first one right, because they didn't know really. I think the first one, because it was Paul Verhoeven, and Robocop is a Paul Verhoeven film, but by the second and third, they didn't know their audience because they were still trying to go for the more mature with the violence, especially in Robocop 2. But with Robocop 3, it was a children's film. So when it came to the reboot, I don't think that they toned the violence down for a younger audience, but it just didn't work to me.
No, that's what really pissed me off of that remake, because when I saw the trailers for that, I thought this actually looks decent. Because I mean, when I heard about it, I groaned and thought, you can't remake Robocop. But when I saw the trailer, I did actually think, oh, fair enough, that's a pretty well cut trailer. But when I heard that it was getting downgraded from an R rating, I just thought, here Hollywood strikes again. And then you see it, don't you? And it doesn't kill anything but robots, and I just think, what is the point? You can't do Robocop not R rated. I'm sorry.
See, you've got Michael Keaton, you've got
Gary
Oldman. Jackson, Gary Oldman, and Joel Kinnaman, is it?
Yeah, who I actually, for the record, didn't think was that bad a Robocop. Actually, it wasn't him that I had a problem with.
Yeah, my bit which takes you out of the film was that when you see Robocop stripped down to what he is, just a brain and a set of lungs and a hand. I didn't like that, because I being ambiguous.
Like, yeah, because I mean, when I was a kid, I used to have endless conversations at school with all my friends, like, what do you think he looks like under the suit? And we would say, like, well, do you think he's just a head, or do you think he's like? And that was the beauty of it, like, you didn't know.
Yeah, I thought to me that was, wow, this is what we can do. I mean,
yeah,
the only bit that was a bit asshole, like in the first one, was when Bob Morton goes on about removing the arm, but he's legally asked to remove the arm.
Yeah, and
that one was a case of, what, they literally, it is more of a control thing, that all he is a head and then a hand. Yeah. And I thought that was it wasn't aiding the narrative in any respect.
No, it was just a shock, wasn't it?
It was just a bit of gratuitous. Yeah, and I thought that was it was I didn't like it.
Like there's a bit at the beginning, isn't there, where it introduces Gary Oldman's character, who's like the scientist, isn't he? And there's that guy playing guitar with a cybernetic arm.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, look, this is what we do in this company. Like, I know about cybernetic arms. It's a Robocop film.
Yeah. It's even Jackie Earle Haley as the
bad guy.
Yeah, he didn't. It just. I wanted to love this film,
Yeah, I did as well. He says the funny line from the original film as well, doesn't he? I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah. I don't think that you can actually make a Robocop film, though.
No.
It's not a children's film. It's not an adult's film. And Paul Verhoeven for one Robocop movie managed to make mainstream a film that really shouldn't be mainstream, because the period where it came out was 88? 87, sorry.
But yeah, it would have bled into 88.
Yeah, that, because the audience at the time was, I would have been 13, 14 at the time.
Yeah.
So I was at the age where the whole idea of a robot cop and violence was like really appealing to a young audience, which could get hold of the videos.
Yeah.
And yet when you watch it, when you watch it then, it's like, wow, there's that. Then you see the subtext later, and it's like, wow, this film is absolutely beyond incredible, because it's two audiences in one, and they got it right. And nowadays, because cinema wants, and movies, they want to get a younger audience so they can make the sequels, they can sell toys, and they can sell video games.
Yeah.
It's about the art. So that's why it's ultimate failing.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, a little story about Robocop was, I don't know if you did this, but because I watched it when I was quite young, which says a lot about my parents, but I used to fast forward the media break bits to get to the Robocop stuff, like, cause like you say, Robot Cop, like shooting bad guys. What more could you like? But then when I was older, I was like, wow, that's clever. Like that's now, and that sort of got pissed on the remake, because they just thought, I will stick Samuel L. Jackson in those bits at the beginning and bleep out him saying motherfucker, and just to get the kids in. And it really annoyed me, like, because the media break bits are actually, when you watch them when you're a bit more educated, they're some of the best parts of the film, aren't they? That's where the humor comes from, isn't it? But no, it's just, I think it's just like, they just watered it down, didn't they, for the remake?
Definitely. I went to I've seen, other than Robocop, I saw the two sequels, and I saw the remake at the cinema, and even by Robocop 3 I was queuing up to go and see it after the play. It was, and you remember that did spin off comic books, it spun off TV series, live action TV series, it spun off animated series. So Robocop was always going to be a problem for someone that, you need someone that knows the property, that has control, that has no studio interference.
Yeah, and I think it's always been a really tricky property to market, hasn't it, Robocop?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I mean, they got it right with, like, Nightmare, because it sounds weird, but, kids did find Freddy cool.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like, annoys me, because you've got Robocop, you've got, like, things like Judge Dredd, which is violent, the comics were violent and that, but they're all marketed for, like, the figures for younger people, obviously. But then, you get something like Batman Returns, where McDonald's go, oh, we're not doing that, that's too dark. Well, did you not see Robocop and Friday the 13th and all that, with lunchboxes and stuff? Like, I don't know what goes on in the marketing brain sometimes.
But McDonald's, you can never see Jason advertising a Happy Meal.
No, I would love to.
That would be cool. The extra sauce.
Yeah.
The McStabby.
Yeah, Mum, is this blood?
Yeah. Let me taste it. That sounds very Harold and Kumar line.
That does sound very, yeah. I think that leads us quite nicely on to what I was going to say next, actually, because talking of Friday and Nightmare, they also have remake territory, don't they? As you would have known if you've listened last week.
And when we did actually segue in this one, which is I always want to avoid Nightmare on Elm Street, so I want to use it as a plug for watch or listen, however you consume your part of this podcast. Watch or listen to last week's In Defense of a Nightmare on Elm Street, because we delved completely into it, and I know I've been saying it a lot lately. Usually when we stop podcasting, it's one of the best podcasts we've done. But honestly, I really enjoyed doing the In Defense of a Nightmare on Elm Street, because it was a challenge.
Yeah.
And that, but something that's very divisive between the two of us, if I'm right, it is Friday the 13th, the 2009, was it?
Yeah. See,
remake.
I've kind of come around a little bit now. Like we were saying earlier about watching remakes and reboots when you're older. I wouldn't see that in cinema, and I think it was one of the first. Was it one of the first 18 films I ever saw? Or? No, maybe not. No, it wasn't. I was 21. Talking rubbish there. I really didn't like it. I just thought it was like a by the numbers kind of thing. And then I rewatched it recently after you said you liked it, and I thought, well, Steve likes it, I'll give it a try. And I actually did enjoy it a lot more. Like it's no masterpiece, but it does what it says. And the by numbers thing probably does work for it actually, because it does what it says on the tin basically, doesn't it? So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot better the second time around.
I liked, and this is the reason why I truly loved it, is because they condensed the first two films into the prologue, and I thought that was good. And then it literally, because the only Friday films I've seen at the cinema were, do we include Freddy versus Jason?
Yeah, it's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw Jason X, and I saw the remake. So to sit through the remake, and essentially, with the exception of how he has underground tunnels to get everywhere. Spoilers! If you haven't seen anything, we should have said spoilers. We're going to say spoilers now. Other than that, it is it's a by the numbers Friday the 13th film with characters that don't deviate far from characters you can imagine in the 80s.
Yeah, the formula.
Films. Yeah. And introducing the hockey mask again in the film, I thought was a nice little touch.
And killing a redneck for it.
So everything. Why would they have a hockey mask there? That's a hockey goalie mask. Let me get it right. And I just thought it was one of those films where you leave the cinema going, yeah, I really enjoyed watching this film because it's not like reinventing the wheel like they tried to with Nightmare. Again, podcast. Check out last week's one. So yeah, that worked.
I do agree. Actually, I'll give you that one. I actually forgot about the whole. I always like potato sack Jason. When he's got the sack over his head in part 2, and I forgot they did that at the beginning of that film, like for the first bit till he finds the hockey mask, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised. So I did change my opinion slightly. I gave it a couple of more points on IMDb as well.
Right.
So, I always remember those rumblings about a sequel to that, wasn't there? But they never got around to it, did they? I mean, we still haven't had a Nightmare or Friday film since around the same time they came out.
I can't speak for Friday, but Nightmare was one of the highest generating films of the
it was just critically bad, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, we've had a Halloween film since then, a fantastic one.
Oh, absolutely. That's the reason why I started watching horrors. When you said Danny McBride has written a horror film, I was like, Danny McBride from Alien Covenant and other things that I really enjoy. Can I just do a bit of a shout out? I know, we might as well use this as a segue. Prometheus and Covenant.
Yeah, they're an interesting sort of kind of reboot, kind of remake, aren't they? Kind of prequel, sorry.
Covenant, I could imagine them just tweaking a little bit and being it in the original Alien timeline.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that was the idea, wasn't it? Because everyone was like, "Oh, Prometheus didn't have any aliens in it," so they I think the studio required them to have an alien in it.
Can I say I define Prometheus as one of the better ones?
I really like it. Some of the dialogue's goofy, but it felt like it was in the Alien universe rather than an Alien film, which I really liked. It's like if they made a spin-off of Blade Runner, I would still love it because it's in the same universe. Well, they do say Blade Runner's in the same universe as Alien, and they say.
I do. I completely agree. I mean, it's only in the last few years I've got really into Alien, and a big thing about that was Prometheus. I think Prometheus is a fantastic film. I think that if you just literally, it's the same thing, we were 28 days, 28 days later, sorry, I should say, you trim the beginning off of 28 days later and start with Cillian Murphy waking up in a hospital, perfect film. You trim the beginning and ending off a Covenant, and then you've got the perfect film. That's on a par with Alien or Aliens, in my honest opinion. I thought it's a stroke of genius, just with a daft beginning and ending. But by that point, a lot of the so-called Alien audience and everybody who vocal switched off to it, which is such a shame because I really want to see a third one in that series.
Yeah, same. I think the whole Fox merger thing sort of put the brakes on a bit as well, didn't it? Because we were all thinking, are Disney still going to let them make R-rated films? But as far as we know, they are, aren't they? So
yeah, Deadpool's.
Yeah, and I think Predator's probably going to have a few installments again soon, isn't it? In the future, sometime.
That's the good thing about Disney is they let people that know the property take over the property.
Yeah.
And you look at Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, what those two are doing at the moment for them.
For Star Wars alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you could have, they'd be stupid not to hire Ridley to produce even like the Alien films, wouldn't they?
When you look at, if I'm right, but The Martian was Fox Searchlight. It was either Fox or Fox Searchlight.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay, I got one. That, okay. Can we go into? Are we the parameters? Can we go into TV?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay, you've got Star Trek.
Yeah, at the moment there's loads of that.
You got Star Trek, which is groundbreaking. Especially for Gene Roddenberry's view of society. But be honest with you, the original series isn't that good.
It's kind of held up on this pedestal, isn't it? Like, and I understand why. It's kind of like the same with my feelings towards The Godfather. I understand its greatness, but when you actually watch the original series, a lot of the episodes are duff.
Yeah. Now,
I mean, when it's great, it is great, but when it's bad, it's fucking awful.
I completely agree. I mean, I started watching Star Trek when it came on Netflix again because I did watch it.
Yeah.
And this is I know this is another point where we disagree. Is Star Trek Next Generation? I know you say they get there after second or third season.
I think the third season, when that's the point where Next Gen was top notch.
I was loving. I was a day one Next Generation fan, and I shouldn't say it because I know I'm not a quote unquote official Trekkie or Trekker. I know that some people argue Trekkie Trekkers, but that's another debate. But I think as a body of work, Star Trek Next Generation is the high point, and is where you can reboot and remake a franchise, which is also going a little bit further. How you can make Star Trek cool is the Kelvin, what is defined as the Kelvin timeline, or to anybody else, the J.J. Abrams, Simon Pegg, Carl Urban, Zoe Saldana, Chris Pine series, the recent trilogy.
Yeah.
And Yeltsin, just throw his name in, may he rest in peace. I mean, you got Next Gen, and you've got the Kelvin timeline, equally as good, at least, as the originals.
Yeah, I quite like the reboots, actually.
Yeah. Into Darkness was not that good, but
yeah, that was a weird one for me. Like, when I first went to see it, I was all like, yeah, Khan's in it. But then when, like later on with reflection, I was kind of like, yeah, it's pretty weak. Like, we both said, didn't we? Like, we know it's Khan, just stop pissing around.
It's the same with Spectre. Annoyed me about Spectre is the same thing that annoyed me about Into Darkness, is that why try and hide something? You've got the person in there, get over it. We know who it is. We figured it out.
Yeah.
It's not some big shock at the end. So that's what Into Darkness down. But in terms of the Star Trek, J.J. Abrams Star Trek, he made Star Trek cool.
Yeah, and like going off what you said about Next Generation, the first two seasons, my only problem with them is that all they were doing was recycling old scripts from the original series, and I didn't feel that worked in the Next Generation universe. Like, there was a few episodes that really stood out, like Measure of a Man in season 2, the one with Data, where they say if he's property or not.
Yeah,
that's one of the best Star Trek episodes ever, and that came in season 2. But I just think, when they shed all the, the old, because it was going to be all Star Trek Phase 2 scripts, I believe, wasn't it? Yeah. And they sort of just repurposed them for Next Generation. That's the only thing that annoys me about the first two seasons, but that's what they got right in the reboot. Like you say, made it cool. So, like, even I remember when that first came out, I really liked it because, the Star Trek references are there if you want them as well, like if you're a fan. But I remember saying to people at work or, my friends, they were saying, oh, the new Star Trek film's really good, actually. And they're not Star Trek fans at all. Like, even my mum hates Star Trek. And she's kind of like, oh, I like them. They're quite actiony, aren't they? And I think that's the key. They updated it for an audience that maybe has never seen it. Maybe that's what it needed, to get it more popular again.
Yeah, and the audience and the casting is superb.
Oh yeah, it's uncanny, isn't it?
I mean, my favorite, because I think you want talent. Carl Urban.
Oh yeah, Burns, yeah.
You go watch, and which I'm gonna segue this into another one, another remake reboot that works perfectly. Dredd.
Oh, Dredd, yeah.
You see Carl Urban as Bones, then you see him as Dredd, then you see him as a Scourge in Thor Ragnarok. It's like this guy can do everything.
I know. I mean, Dredd is like, give the guy an Oscar for acting with his chin.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if any, obviously, like, if you've not seen the original Stallone one, please do so. It's hilarious. But the problem with that was like 10 minutes and he took the helmet off, didn't he? And as everyone who's read Judge Dredd knows, he never takes the helmet off. So when you see the beginning of Dredd and he's putting the helmet on, blurred in the background, and he never takes it off for the whole film, I just thought, how did this film flop? Like, it's so good.
I that one I cannot answer. I mean, I got to admit, I know it did a lot of money on the secondary market on home entertainment.
On Blu-ray, yeah.
I mean, I bought it when I found out that. I mean, I saw it at the cinema and I thought it was absolutely gruesome. Did, yeah. You know what was the reason why I suddenly had to own it on Blu-ray? Is I found out that it's apparently ghost directed by Alex Garland, who actually wrote it.
Yeah, there is like rumors, isn't there, of that? I thought it felt very Garland.
Yeah.
Directed, considering you watch Annihilation or Deus Ex Machina, sorry, and it felt very much like the same sort of filmmaking, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Annihilation and Ex Machina are two films which you haven't seen. I would really recommend going out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And but Dredd got it right.
Yeah,
it was loyal to the comics.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think I did. We kind of answered our own question why it didn't do well. It was because it wasn't 18, I think. Yeah. And that's a sad thing now, because we've had many a conversation about films in the 80s and the 70s that were R-rated or 18 rated. That's our version of it, and they still did well because people appreciated the art back then, didn't they? If Paul Verhoeven released a film tomorrow that was an 18, I would go and see it because I like the man and I like the films. But that's just sadly the culture now, is we need 12As to get more people in.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that if we've got an audience in other territories, but when they say hard R in America, or North America, should I say, it to us means 15.
Yeah,
as a rule. I mean, if you look at comic book movies that have got 18 certificates, I mean, we're essentially looking at like Sin City and Watchmen.
Yeah,
and yet you can show more violence than you have in, say, Sin City and Watchmen on TV in the likes of Games of Thrones and American Gods, just to name two.
Walking Dead.
Yeah, but to get a cinema release, I mean, the Watchmen wasn't a massive hit.
No,
by a stretch. And yet you still have the violence in the TV series, which is a little bit of another segue.
It is weird, isn't it? I think as well, Watchmen was another one that got a following after cinema, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like if it was when in the 80s, it would have been a video cult hit, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, but in the 80s, whereas now you have to be ID'd, and if you didn't look old enough. Speaking from experience, because there was not so much control, governmental and local authority control, you could literally, if cinema were nice enough, you could be under 18 and they wouldn't check you. And even if they knew you weren't, they were all about selling tickets.
Yeah, of course.
Get you in, and that it can be a bad thing in the wrong hands, but it can be a good thing if you know that the person that's going to see the film is just a cinema fanatic.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are stable, aren't they, emotionally with films? It's only the odd few that aren't.
That's true. I mean, but I grew up as like I am today. I'm not just a film fanatic. I'm a fan. We are fans of the art form.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a little bit off topic because as soon as we found out that Parasite was showing locally, we went to see it without knowing anything about it, and it was having that experience because we wanted to experience that in the cinema.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's what's like one of the things missing today. So I came up with a really interesting one. Like I said, I've been doing nothing but I've been doing a lot of thought into this.
Go on, hit me with your rhythm stick.
I start. Made that, which is a segue: sex and drugs and rock and roll.
That was a good little segue from Judge Dredd as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was in Judge. Oh yeah, Judge Dredd as well. Ian Jury. A Star Is Born.
I haven't seen that yet, actually. Although I have seen the 70s version, the Chris Christopherson one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it came out around about the same time as La La Land, so it got lost with La La Land.
Yeah.
I think La La Land is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, I think La La Land's amazing, yeah.
But I watched A Star Is Born in the cinema, which is a good film. Don't get me wrong. Then I watched the original 70s Chris Christopherson, Barbra Streisand.
Yeah.
I didn't, because Chris Christopherson's character who falls in love with the young, and I didn't like it because he cheats on her. It kind of it kind of threw me as being like, I don't like the character. So his arc was kind of like, it was always not, I just didn't like him. So I thought the remake was actually it's the third one, it's a Judy Garland film, if I'm right, as well.
Yeah, it was 50s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as I know, I think all three plots are different, aren't they?
Slightly, but it's full of the theme.
So that's quite an interesting sort of difference with that, because I mean, remakes you expect some difference, well, unless you're Gus Van Sant in 1998. But I think that's quite an interesting example because, as far as I know, the new one, the one with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, it's slightly different from the Chris Christopherson one, isn't it? I mean, the premise is the same, isn't it? But
I just thought the characterization was so much better in the Bradley Cooper.
I've heard it's the best one.
And Lady Gaga, who I'm not, who musically I'm not a fan of, but she's bloody good in this. I'll give her that.
Yeah, she's good in American Horror Story as well.
Hasn't that got Billy Lord in it as well?
Yeah, it's got loads of people in it. And it's got Quicksilver in it as well.
Which one?
Evan Peters. Evan Silver.
I found one. Okay, another one I found, because like I said, I've been doing a lot of thought into this. There's an Indian, I hope it's Indian, I got it right, I got the right nationality that made it right, remake of Chef, the Jon Favreau film.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
It's on Amazon Prime, and I'm trying to get hold of a physical copy, or a digital copy that I can actually own. I found out about it, and I eventually did track it down to Amazon Prime, and I watched it. It's enough differences to make it its own separate film, inspired by Jon Favreau's Chef, which Chef is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, Chef's
but it's but to actually find that a small American film had an Indian remake is absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's worth checking out.
Is it Bollywood?
It's very similar. I'm sure, if I remember right, because I only watched it once, because it's one of those ones I really want to go back to. It has got a song and dance number in it.
Yeah, it seems strange, doesn't it, to us that a lot. I think it's like pretty much every single film they make, doesn't it? But on the subject of Bollywood, actually, when I watched the live action Aladdin, which is absolutely terrible, I always thought there's a bit at the end when the credits are on and it's kind of feels like a Bollywood film. And I actually thought, I'm getting invested now. This film should have been a Bollywood production, like sort of the way they did the songs and that. I think that would have worked really well with the whole sort of Arabian theme. Yeah. And it's the less said about that, the better. But yeah, I think that's interesting as well that they could, like you say, it's a small film, isn't it? Chef. It's not by any means like it wasn't a massive moneymaker, I don't think, was it? But it's a nice little personal film, to us as well. So yeah, I'll have to check that out as well.
You got any more?
Yeah, well, I was going to say an interesting one I always think with remakes is remakes that are better than the original. Now I've got a few, but I don't know if you wanted to chime in first.
I'm clutching at straws on all my ones, so you go first.
So I've got two. The Thing, which is obviously John Carpenter's 1982 remake of The Thing from Another World.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question which one's better. I mean, for years I even thought they were different films because Carpenter's is so good, and it's not even a contest. I mean, I showed you watched it for the first time with me last year, and
we were doing one of our podcasts. It was one of our post-podcast films.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by the cinematography.
Yeah.
And it's 82, was it?
Yeah. Well,
it
was one of the films that got sidelined by ET along with Blade Runner as well.
And I remember saying to you at the time, it made me feel cold watching it. And actually, and it's a perfect film.
Yeah, I mean, and the special effects by Rick Baker, they're just, even today. I mean, you watch, they did a kind of remake prequel, annoyingly and unhelpfully called The Thing as well in 2011 with Mary Elizabeth Winstead and what's the Australian Joel Edgerton?
Yeah, Uncle Owen.
Yeah, Uncle Owen. Yeah, and that was all CG, and you just kind of felt like you still watch The Thing now, and it looks absolutely amazing. The effects, I like a lot of those 80s films do, and I think that's an example of a remake that's a lot better than the original and actually supplants the original. And it leads into my second one as well, which is Scarface. The 1983 version is way better than the original 30s version, I think.
There was a 30s version.
What's that?
I didn't realise it was a remake.
Yeah, well, it was an old sort of. They're done like Al Capone gangsters in the original.
Oh.
So it's like there's a guy called Paul Mooney in it, and he was quite famous because he was actually a real gangster for a little bit before he was an actor. But yeah, there's no comparison. I mean, you watch Scarface and you're watching a film that's completely like absorbed by the 80s.
And it's so quotable and everybody knows it.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't know the "Say Hello to My Little Friend"? I don't know. What's your opinion on Scarface?
I'm not a fan, but I understand why it's a classic.
Yeah,
and the whole mountain of cocaine.
Yeah. Where he just sort of face plants it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The soundtrack's great as well. I mean, if you want the most 80s sounding soundtrack, it's so good. But yeah, no, that's the only two I could think of in that subject where they're better than the original. I mean, I don't actually like loads of people say The Departed online, but I actually really don't like The Departed. I think if you watch the original, I think they're Korean.
Isn't it Infernal Affairs 2?
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, I mean, but I think it's mainly 1. But yeah, they're much better.
Yeah.
I never really liked The Departed. I always think it was a bit of a best director sympathy fuck for Scorsese, wasn't it?
Yeah, for the record, because it's one of our expressions, I really think, isn't it? The sympathy fuck is gets an Oscar for something that they don't deserve it for because they've done much better performances. For me, my big one is DiCaprio.
Oh, for The Revenant.
Yeah, when he should have got it for This Boy's Life or
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, and because in This Boy's Life, he literally eats Robert De Niro off the screen, and he was just a kid at the time.
Yeah.
And
I've never seen that, actually. I've heard of it, though.
He literally blows De Niro at his peak, well, just around his peak, off the screen. And I don't mean I mean, he is that good a performance. And also Leonardo DiCaprio, he's a major talent, and he should have got it. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's one of those ones you go, I got to give him the Oscar because he does so much work.
He's been waiting long enough.
I mean, Scorsese, you should have got it for Goodfellas.
Oh, God. I think Goodfellas is, I mean, Scarface is my favourite gangster film, but that's probably a bit of a guilty pleasure. If I was actually going to think critically and academically, I think Goodfellas is probably the daddy, isn't it? I mean, I even think Goodfellas is better than Godfather. Yeah, I said it. Like, I don't understand. I understand why Godfather is where it is in the sort of stratosphere of society, but I don't know. I just think I find the first one really boring. They're
long, but they're the films that have to be made because a certain person invested in a film that made no money.
Yeah.
738. Let's put it this way.
a certain filmmaker who would never become famous.
Yeah. If it wasn't for THX 1138, you wouldn't have the Godfather movies. You wouldn't have American Graffiti.
Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now and Star Wars. So thank you. And THX 1138 just turned 50. So thank you, THX 1138, for all these good films we have for flopping.
Yeah. Good Lord, the 70s, 50 years ago now.
50 years since THX. So, any more?
That's the only two I could think of that are better than the original. There probably are ones. I mean, there's also that weird little micro category of remakes where directors remake their own films. You know, like Michael Mann did with Heat. You know, the original version of that's LA. I think it's LA Heist or something like that. It's shite, and Heat's like an epic crime film, or something like Ben-Hur, where they were made silent originally, and the original directors remade them, or the Ten Commandments. You know, like they made them in color and with sound. That's kind of cheating though, I think, because not many people are going to choose the silent ones, are they? Because they were shorter. And
I got two on that vein. You've got Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, which isn't Evil Dead remake, and it's defined as a superior one. Personally, I didn't like it until I saw the original. You got El Mariachi, then Desperado. For me, Desperado seemed to be a film that lacked a real decent story. I watched El Mariachi, then Desperado, but I know a lot of people know Desperado and not so much El Mariachi.
Well, I'd seen Desperado years ago. I think I watched it when it was on. I've probably not seen the uncut version because it was on telly. I watched it. So if you live in the US, like all our films on telly are cut. But yeah, no. And then you introduced me to El Mariachi. I knew about it, but I'd never seen it. So, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to watching Desperado again, actually, just to see what the connection between the two.
I like it. I thought everybody knows that. I mean, I've got. I'm not sure. These are what I've actually been using. Anytime I had a film, I've been writing them down on notepads, on memo notes, and you got things like Spider-Man 2, the Raimi ones, considered better than the first Spider-Man. You got Endgame being better than any of the Avengers movies. You've got Wrath of Khan, which is better regarded as being the better one than a motion picture, which I disagree with because I love motion picture. Yeah, Empire Strikes Back is critically better than A New Hope.
Yeah.
Then I started going on to the territory which blends into TV. Yeah, so you've got Watchmen, the movie, which a lot of people, but I like it. It's a hard watch.
I think it's incredible.
The TV series is equal to the movie.
Yeah.
It's a sequel come retelling.
Yeah, it's based on the comics, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than the film universe.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people were sort of, even I was confused because I went into it assuming it was a continuation of the film, but when they had like the squids in it and stuff, you know, and I thought, well, that wasn't in. Well, I think it was in one of the cuts, wasn't it? Was it? Or it was going to be, wasn't it? I think it's not even in any of the extended cuts, is it? No. Yeah.
And that is on a par with the Watchmen TV series, on a par with the movie. You've got Westworld, the movie, and Future World, which I think are fantastic films. But then you've got the Westworld TV series, which expands on it, and it has the opportunity to expand on it. And I think Westworld works perfectly.
I still haven't seen that.
It's good.
Loads of people have said it's really good, so they can't all be wrong.
So I was going to say, watch season 1 and season 2, then just tolerate season 3 to the last episode because it makes sense in the last episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got Bumblebee. It's kind of a reboot.
Yeah. I agree that was actually quite good. Because, I mean, with the quality of the Transformers films, I was kind of like, oh, not another one. Oh, a prequel this time. They're doing something different, are they? And then I actually did sit down and watch it, and I was like, I actually really enjoyed that. I
watched that, and I watched the Last Night, is it?
Oh, it's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we went to cinema to watch Bumblebee, and then Last Night, because it was too long to sit at the cinema to sit through that shot. And then I watched it at home, and I was like, God, I didn't go to cinema to see it.
I don't actually get why Michael Bay thinks these films should be nearly 3 hours long. Like, it's robots fighting each other. It's honestly not that complicated.
It's robots fighting each other that you can't make out what is what and who is who.
Yeah, and I think the runtime is actually because of the amount of slow-mo uses as well.
And you've always got the is when you find out that Star-Lord's mum's actually in Last Night, but she's all dolled up to look like a typical Bay Bimbo.
Yeah.
And that didn't work for me.
No.
And you've got how much did Anthony Hopkins get paid to do it?
Oh God, he looks so sort of phoned in, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's his Michael Caine Jaws 4.
Well, yeah, bought him a house, yeah.
Yeah. I got one for you, and I think this is gonna get me into a bit of trouble.
Ooh.
I started reading the Days of Future Past comic book. Wasn't a fan, even though I like the writers, Chris Claremont, if I'm right.
Yeah, the guy did the Phoenix Saga, wasn't it?
Yeah, I started reading the comic book, but I couldn't get into it. But I do like the animated version from the 90s, and I do like the cinematic version of Days of Future Past. So I think that's actually better than the source material.
Yeah, I think the 90s series is fantastic. I mean, they're on Disney Plus if you've never seen them now. But yeah, the X-Men. I always thought X-Men was better than the Spider-Man animated series, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
It had more like, they had arcs, didn't they? A lot of the time, whereas Spider-Man was kind of like Monster of the Week.
I do agree, and but like I said, if for one time, I mean, Dark Phoenix, they've yet to get Dark Phoenix right, but Days of Future Past, is actually a better retelling of the story. I mean,
yeah, it's really good. It was good, sort of. I mean, it's a good example of a reboot, a soft reboot, isn't it? You know, getting it right, where you can always do stuff like that with time travel, can't you?
Yeah.
Because you can sort of explain away, you know, poo-poo things by saying, "Oh no, well they've changed the past" or whatever. You know, again, it's why Star Trek worked as well, isn't it? You know,
right.
how do you even get them in an alter? Oh yeah, time travel.
It does. It works, and I have another one on the X-Men. I'm trying to, like I said, I'll go through my notes here. Faculty.
Sorry?
The Faculty, a 90s retelling of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, there's quite a few sort of remakes of that don't use the original title, aren't there?
Yeah.
Because you've got, I think there's a 1998 film by, I can't remember his name now, the one that, Abel Ferrara, called The Body Snatchers. And then you've obviously got the 78 remake, which is I think everyone considers that the best one, don't they?
Yeah.
I really do like that. Then there was a Daniel Craig version called Invasion in 2006 as well, which was it's kind of like The Happening. But
oh, no.
Yeah, no, I've never seen The Faculty, actually. I've always heard good things about it, though.
It was late 90s, so it was one of those ones I went to see at the cinema. It doesn't feel like a Rodriguez movie, but it's a Rodriguez movie. But
is it an official retelling, or is it sort of inspired by?
I think it's inspired by. Let me double check.
It is very similar though, because they're based. Spoilers. They're aliens, aren't they? The teachers.
Yeah. There was another X-Men one I did have.
Was it Dark Phoenix of kind of a remake of Last Stand? No. It does feel like that, doesn't it?
Last Stand was better than Dark Phoenix.
Oh, way better. Yeah.
That was one last shot. It's got just the writers. I think it was inspired by The Faculty but
it's enough of an inspired by to seem like an adaptation, though, isn't it?
But Dark Phoenix is one that totally got it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't find it as bad as everyone else said, but it was still not as good as Last Stand. I mean, our sort of destroyed this franchise for a little bit for us was Apocalypse, wasn't it? Where they say, "Oh yeah, the third one's never as good as."
No, that was terrible.
Really, you're gonna have to take a shot at Jedi after?
Yeah.
And I know it was kind of like a Bryan Singer shot at Last Stand, wasn't it? But you ended up making a third one that was absolutely god awful, ironically.
I don't like films. I didn't like it because they took it. I mean, as you can all tell, we're big Star Wars nuts, but I don't. The Return of the Jedi reference didn't bother me. I just thought you're taking the Mickey a little bit by doing another Last Stand shot. I thought, who do you think you are doing this? And I love the X-Men films, and I'll always be loyal to the X-Men movies, but that really annoyed me.
Yeah.
It really annoyed me and took me out of the film to the point where, of the X-Men movies, that's the one I'd be least inclined to watch, because that one line, I thought the director's trying to make his point, and it didn't work. It just ended up alienating a group. I always say, if you're making something, always assume that there's someone out there that actually likes the films you're slagging off.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe would work. That's the problem as well. It felt a bit too Deadpool as well, didn't it? You know, it works in Deadpool because he's basically just, we've all acknowledged that that's just breaking the fourth wall and it's not canon or whatever, you know. Whereas in something like X-Men, where you want to be invested, like, they are characters you follow for a while, and even when they sort of kind of soft rebooted that with First Class, you wanted to stick with the 60s versions as well, didn't you? As this is another weird thing about the prequel series of X-Men films. Why does no one age?
I have no idea. Oh, the X gene. That's the argument.
Right, okay. Doesn't Dark Phoenix, is that supposed to be the 90s? Yeah. So why does no one look like? Yeah, I'm not even going to go.
Why does no one look like Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, or McKellen.
Yeah, I just didn't. I had no. I gotta admit, I had no emotional connection to Sophie Turner's Jean Grey, because she was barely in the one before, in Apocalypse. Yeah. So there's no. Whereas with Famkes, there was the investment.
Yeah, well, you had two films, didn't you? And then, the three, I mean, but you had two, and then you could invest in her being Phoenix. Whereas, Apocalypse just sort of shoved that whole Phoenix thing at the end, didn't it? And then we were just kind of like, oh, so the next one's about Dark Phoenix. Then
it should have been a trilogy.
Yeah,
it should have been a trilogy. But tell you another one. I mean, you got, like, if we hit TV, you got Supergirl, which is. Which I mean, don't get me wrong, I like these. I do like the Helen Slater Supergirl movie.
I haven't seen it for years.
I bought it on the back of it. I went on a bit of a binge last year.
All right.
Supergirl, so we bought it and we watched it.
It's quite enjoyable, isn't it? But it's quite enjoyable, isn't it?
Yeah. But I do like the new one as well. So the TV series. You've got Punisher. I do. Yeah. You got Dolph Lundgren's version. Then again, I do like Thomas Jane. I
think Thomas Jane's fantastic.
And I like Johnny Bernthal, especially if you make your way through season 2. To me, that arc is pure. It's brilliant. It really is.
I still haven't seen the standalone series. I've seen him in Daredevil, and he was great in that as well. I mean, it's kind of a shame, wasn't it? Because he kind of took the spotlight, didn't he?
He did. A bit like when... spoilers, Boba Fett turns up in season 2 of Mando.
Yeah, but I thought that was done really well, because he didn't steal the spotlight. It was like there was one episode dedicated to him, wasn't there? Like, yeah, we're going to get this out of the way, Boba Fett's back. And then, like the finale, we were saying, weren't we, like how it doesn't just focus on him, and that was really good. And because you obviously got that other cameo in the last episode, but I was kind of worried they were going to sort of just stick him in every scene after that, but they didn't, and I was really, really impressed that they didn't.
I completely agree with you 100% because on that one. But I mean, as a personal, because I've had about over 40 years with the character, so it's
it was fucking cool to see him again.
Yeah, so to me, but using Boba so sparingly in the last episode, that's spot on. That is absolutely.
Sorry.
No, I thought that was perfect, because it's sort of like going, he's not the main character.
No, I mean, and it sort of gave vindication, didn't it? To, I think a lot of original trilogy fans like us, were kind of like, he's not dead. Like the Sarlacc didn't kill him.
it was, I mean, you could even argue that the Mandalorian on its own, because of all the negative criticism to the sequel trilogy, Mandalorian's rebooted.
Completely. Yeah, I think people even said that during the prequel era, when the prequel finished, when Clone Wars came along, everyone was like, wow, this is good Star Wars again, like and I think they've sort of done it again with Mandalorian. I mean, we like the sequel trilogy, don't we?
Yes.
But I do acknowledge that there are some problems with them. But
Don't you
Mandalorian's
say
perfect.
right.
Style. What's that?
Don't you dare say kind of right.
I know. I was actually thinking of some things in 7 and 9, but that is one of the big annoyances for me. But I mean, but we both agree that's a great film.
Yes.
But well, I mean, there's another Star Wars thing again. The sequel trilogy. They're kind of, what are they? I know they're sequels, but the 7 was basically a remake of A New Hope, wasn't it?
Yeah. And 8 was the one that if Empire Strikes Back would have been released today, would have still got the same criticism, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it would. Yeah, definitely. Was Vader's his father? That's stupid.
Yeah. Internet petition so that JJ changes it for the next one.
Yeah, so dominant.
Now I've got to say, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Rise of Skywalker felt like Return of the Jedi, and it was having that experience of sitting in the cinema where I'm feeling like I felt like in 1983. I don't think you can take that away.
I think I sort of like, I understand everyone's criticisms and I do see them with repeated viewings, but I can't shake the fact that it was such a fun film to watch. Like you say, it's how Star Wars. When I remember going to see Force Awakens, I was kind of like, wow, this, like, I had fun. I was sort of shouting at the screen, and I was, my friend next to me was going like, oh my god, the Millennium Falcon just turned up, and it's how Star Wars should be. It should be like a fangasm.
Yeah. For me, I think 7's a weak one, but for me, the highlight of that film for me was when the rebel ship, not rebels, they are
the Resistance
ship drops, and you just know who's going to be on that ship.
Yeah,
just waiting. And to me, it was such a release when seeing Leia and Han together again for the first time.
Yeah, I think because the trailer had obviously already revealed that Han was there, and I think they had to sort of reveal one of the original cast just to get everyone thinking, "Well, that looks cool." Because I remember seeing the whole "We're home" Chewie thing.
Yeah,
and I thought, "Oh my god, Han, you put Han Solo in anything, I'll watch it." But no, I agree. Like, I think the sequel trilogy was really well done in terms of the secrets as well, keeping the cameos on the down low, and it makes it more enjoyable knowing that you haven't spoiled something
until 5 minutes after the film comes out and everybody wants to spoil it for view count.
Which is why I don't go on any internet platform when there's a film I want to see out now.
I'm exactly the same. I got a good one for you on this is actually one I only wrote down yesterday. Planet of the Apes sequels, remakes.
Yeah, which I think are actually the best incarnations of Planet of the Apes, if I'm honest.
I like the Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, that is fantastic.
And
I don't know, consistency-wise, and seeing how that whole thing comes about before the original is. I mean, I hadn't seen War for the Planet of the Apes for ages, and then you kept saying, watch it. The last act is amazing. And I was kind of like, I wonder what he means. And then I finally watched it, and I was just like, wow, I need to watch all 3 of those in a row now.
I like the original series in terms of, and I highly recommend watching the documentary Behind the Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, that's really good. Yeah,
I like them for social commentary.
Yeah,
but
is it Battle? Is the one that's kind of like the civil rights one, isn't it?
The one in, I think so.
Yeah, because there's so many, isn't there?
Yeah, but I like what the message that they were putting through. But in terms of 3 genuinely perfect movies, in terms of what story they were trying to tell, it is Rise, Dawn, and War. I think.
Yeah.
And by the time we got to War, we weren't that. I thought the trailer wasn't that good.
No, that's weird, isn't it? Because there's quite a few films where they're great films, but they had bad trailers.
Birds of Prey, which we were discussing before this podcast.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I love Guardians. I'm going to disagree on that, which I think might be for a future podcast.
Yeah.
But sitting through War of the Planet of the Apes and The Ark, I was like, this is, yeah.
I mean, it's perfect sort of lead-in as well, isn't it? I mean, because the next one, if they do a next one, it will be a straight sort of remake of the first one, won't it?
Yes.
And I think that could work now.
It would be. I mean, it's Matt Reeves, is it the director?
Yeah, he's. I mean, I love Matt Reeves. I don't, did he do all of them or just? No, Rupert Wyatt did the first one, didn't he?
He did the second. It's it's when they announced the Batman.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the fact that when I saw, and of course you got the Robert Pattinson thing, and as soon as it said Matt Reeves from War of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go see that film just because he directed it.
yeah. And when I first heard Pattinson was in it, I sort of thought my mind sort of boycotted it, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm not watching that. Edward Cullen's in that, and then I've seen a few films after Twilight with him in it, and he's a fantastic actor. So then when I did see the trailer, I thought, yeah, that looks fucking amazing. Just there's another sort of reboot territory as well. Batman, isn't it?
This is where we're going. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I mean, if you want our opinions on Superman, we've done that. So a little good to plug for the podcast. But with Batman, so many incarnations now on the cinema. So you mean you've got the originals. You got Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney,
Christian Bale,
Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson. So you got 6 of them, and
Kevin Conroy, I suppose.
Kevin Conroy for a little shout out. Crisis on Infinite Earth, little mini.
He was originally in the animated series, wasn't he?
Yeah. So, but for me, I mean, the new Flash movie, the fact you got the Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. I mean, just for that setup.
Yeah, I'm there. That's me. Literally, day of release, first screening, best cinema we can get. We'll be in that cinema and enjoying it just to see Michael Keaton on the big screen again.
Oh, he's just. I mean, he's shown how fantastic he still is now. Like even in, I mean, you've had a couple of DC defections, haven't you, to Marvel with him and Michelle Pfeiffer, but they've both been fantastic. And it just shows, he can still do stuff now, in like Spotlight and The Founder, and I like the fact that he had a little break from acting because he kind of just. I remember thinking when I was, I think it was, I went to see a film called White Noise, and it was the first film I'd seen with him in it for a while. It's basically like a ghost film, but I remember saying to my friend, like, God, do you remember Michael Keaton? He hadn't seen him for ages, and then he's come back now and he's better than ever.
Yeah. Birdman.
Yeah, which I still haven't seen it.
I sat in the cinema because I thought the trailer made it look like a comedy, but it's more of an art house fun film. And I was like, sat in the cinema and we enjoyed it. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
He can't. It's like Emma Stone should have got the Oscar for that film.
I mean, if you're also a fan of this channel, as you'll know from our personally least favorite podcast, Michael Keaton is still the best Batman, isn't he?
Yeah, I just want to clarify what you say. It's only our least favorite podcast because
we both agree. Yeah.
If you want to hear us 10 minutes agreeing on something, check out
Keaton's ass.
Yeah, which is all it is 10 minutes of us kissing his ass, and that's.
But I mean, it's warranted. He is still the greatest Batman, isn't he?
Definitely.
I even watched Batman '89 the other day, and it still holds up.
I just want to do another gratuitous plug for the Batman audio commentary we did last week.
Yeah.
Listen to that. Yeah, that's again. I keep saying we've done some pretty decent. If you're new to us, this is one of these. We've actually done some. Because I'm very judgmental upon our work.
Yeah, so am I. I always think I never give the best, not performance, but
that pod is when through natural conversation we pull out some real gems, and I think in the Batman one we did.
Yeah, gems. And also if you want to hear us watching the film for like 2 minutes straight, forgetting.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I sort of, let's be honest, it was all your idea, the whole doing these commentary tracks, and they work brilliant. So when we come out of lockdown, we can actually sit in the same room together.
Yeah.
If you do it, we will be doing a load of commentaries because we were supposed to be integrating commentary podcasts. Yeah,
so like every other week we would do a commentary. I just thought, we'd get through loads of films doing that, and there's so much we want to say about so many films.
Yeah.
I think the commentary works really well in a podcast format because you can just stick your earphones in, turn your phone off, and it still goes on, and you can just watch the film.
Yeah. So we have got all this coming. So So, yeah. So is there any is there any other film? Because I've literally exhausted my, other than of course going into real big territory with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is a TV series, which is a remake, V for Vendetta, which I think is better than the comic book.
I do as well, also.
And when people go on about Watchmen being unfilmable, I go, well, after having read V for Vendetta, the comic book, I found that was the harder one to convert.
Yeah, I did as well. I mean, because V for Vendetta is really political, isn't it? And it's politically dated to the period. It's Thatcherism, isn't it? Gone riot. So I think, that I always thought that would have been harder, because it is. You read it now, and it is still a bit dated. It required the whole knowledge of Thatcherism and the fact that was the period Alan Moore was living in. So I think that dated it a little bit more than, Watchmen's still relevant today, because it's the themes it's dealing with that's more, and because we've had a superhero renaissance, obviously it's still quite relevant. Whereas, I think the film of V for Vendetta is a lot better, because it could happen. It looks like it's happening in any sort of near future setting, doesn't it? I mean, how close did America just come to being like that?
Yes.
So I agree.
Through unity through faith. I mean, look at all some of Trump's advisors were all Christians.
Yeah.
And we're not about the normal Christians. We're not about your
fundamentalists.
Yeah, all the ones. Yeah, so it's So that's any final comments?
I was just going to briefly mention Halloween.
Halloween,
because I think that's an example of a reboot/remake done fantastically. Where you sort of dismiss all the other installments and just say this is the real sequel to the first one. And I was so happy that you liked it, because
it blew me away, and it made me look at horror films I think we've got I know we did the commentary tracked it, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Well,
Halloween.
Yeah, problem with doing remakes and sequels that basically say parts 2 and 3 didn't happen.
Yeah,
you have to let the audience know going into it before you go in. So you're watching a sequel like Terminator Dark Fate, saying, well, you're watching a sequel to Terminator 2
again.
So, but with this one, they just used the throwaway line from some of the characters.
Yeah, it's the wasn't that his sister or something like that? And they go, no, that was just made up.
That alone was perfection, and turning the monster back into the monster.
Yeah, instead of the toy seller.
Yeah, and having it so that you're actually rooting for your final girl.
Yeah,
I thought that was, and not killing off your lead from the previous films in the first act. Things like that, and having you on your edge of your seat because the monster is back. It was perfection.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's a formula that could work with a lot of franchises. I mean, we mentioned Robocop. I think that's how you do Robocop. You do a sequel to the original and you ignore everything else, and you have it be violent again. And we've said this as well with Terminator. I think Terminator needs to stop rebooting after 2 and go back and do a sequel to the first one.
Yeah.
Because it's time travel again. You can do what you want with Terminator, because you can just bullshit the audience and say, oh, well, it's this timeline. I'd love to see a sequel to the original where Arnie's a bad Terminator again. Yeah. I think that'd be fantastic. I don't think they'll do it because they're too pussy to do it. But I think Halloween's kind of started something, with that whole dismiss the other ones. This is a sequel to the original. I don't know. I mean, they're obviously they've planned a trilogy, haven't they? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as well.
Yeah, coming in October, we'll be doing a review of Halloween Kills, hopefully.
Yeah, and then I think the last one's called Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see, because I've seen there's a teaser, isn't there, for Kills, and it looks.
It went on long just the day before they cancelled it.
Yeah. It's fuck this COVID shit. think that's me, to be honest.
Yeah. So this has been the High Ground podcast, sequels and remakes, and I hope you've enjoyed.
It was a hard one for us.
Yeah, I think it actually turned out better than I thought it did. We were actually be able to talk for 40 minutes longer than I thought we would.
I think we will have to do like a top 10 remakes we like. Would probably be more focused, wouldn't it? Because then we can work on for specific examples. Because I think with this, it's just kind of been a free for all, hasn't it? And that was my fault for just choosing it on a whim.
I loved it. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So I'm Stevie W.
And Callum.